The issues affecting you. Revealed, explained, discussed. Now on WGAL 8 in Focus.
Hello, I'm Susan Shapiro. Voters in Lancaster voted overwhelmingly in the general election to change the form of government in the city to home rule charter law. Under the new government structure, residents will have more say on policies, with City Council still giving final approval. It also gives the city the ability to raise certain taxes and not just rely on property tax increases for revenue. Tonight, we'll talk with the mayor of Lancaster, the head of the Home Rule Commission, and a community member about the change and what it means. We're putting home rule in Lancaster in focus. Joining us now is Brian Adams, who is the chair of the Home Rule Study Commission in Lancaster. Thanks so much for being here.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
What considerations did the Home Rule Commission take when it embarked on this mission?
Well, we did a lot of research. We spent the first year just researching other cities and the current structure of our city. We met with a couple of mayors, we read through other charters, we looked at audits of the city finances, and just really did a lot of research into what the city does and how the city functions.
Does this change the structure of the city government in any way? I think it eliminates one position.
With that exception, no. That's the only exception. We have decided to eliminate the treasurer position. We thought it was redundant. The treasurer tends to be a elected tax collector, which the city already provides. So there was no point in retaining the treasurer. But we kept the controller, who is the city auditor, and we kept the same form, what was called the strong mayor form of government, with a 7-member city council, same terms, same responsibilities.
We keep hearing this will give residents more of a voice in city government. How so?
Well, that was one of the biggest parts of the Home Rule Charter. What we have done is we've written into the charter that if any citizen, resident of the city, wants to charge city council to do something, they can go out, collect signatures, and put a item on the agenda for city council. And city council must debate it and must vote on this. And there's actually a second step. If the city council decides not to pursue it, that same person can then go out, again, collecting signatures to get their ballot initiative and get it on a referendum in the next election. So the citizens get a great deal of more control over how their city is run.
Obviously, taxes are the big issue, and probably in any city. How will this control taxes?
Well, this is the best part of it. Right now, we are really limited to taxing property, which is a regressive tax. It seriously is a challenge for people who are retired, people who are renting, and this allows a cap to be removed from the earned income tax. The city earned income tax is currently 1.1%. The mayor's proposed 2 scenarios. One is raising it 0.3%, so it would raise to 1.4, or 0.5, raising it to 1.6. The idea is that by doing this, they would not have to raise property taxes. Earned income taxes tend to move with the economy. So as people make more money, they'll pay a little bit more in earned income tax. And it is a far more, I guess, easier way to budget. Most cities have not had to change their tax structure who have gone under home rule since they first changed the earned income tax and the property tax limits.
Do you foresee it helping the city with its fiscal issues?
Oh, I think it's going to be great. I really think it will do a lot. It will allow longer term budgeting. We'll be able to work more issues with pensions and so on. But I think it will be an excellent addition to the issues of revenue for the city.
What's the downside?
I don't really have one. I've heard a lot of people say this will create uncontrolled taxation. It will not. It cannot. The city cannot, under home rule, cannot tax anything that the state says they're not allowed to tax. So we can't just go out and add taxes. All it really changes is how the residents can, I guess, run their own government. With the referendums, how we can collect taxes, which is a fair tax system, and same structure and everything else stays the same. I don't see the downside.
Do you think it will attract more people to the city and possibly more businesses if for any reason?
I'm not really sure about the businesses. I don't know how that would impact it, but I do think it will make the city more of a retirement focus. The biggest issue for a retired couple is property taxes when it comes to finances, and this would do a great service.
And just quickly, what's the
eliminate
next step? Where do you go from here?
So the next step is to transition. So it has passed by the voters. We will be forming a transition team, consists of 3 people. I appoint one as the chair of the commission. The mayor or the mayor can delegate somebody to be the second position, and the president of city council appoints the third. Their job over the next 18 months or so are just to oversee city council writing the administrative code, forming the ethics commission, and making sure the transition from the current optional charter plan that is set by the state to our new home rule charter goes smoothly.
Great. Well, thank you. So the work is not done yet, right?
No, it's not.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. We appreciate your time.
Well, thank you.
Coming up, we'll speak with Lancaster Mayor Deneen Sarace and get her take on home rule.
This is WGAL 8 in Focus. Coverage you can count on.
Joining us now is Lancaster Mayor Deneen Sarace. Thanks so much for joining us.
Glad to be here. Thank you, Susan.
We appreciate it. You called this a historic moment on election night. Why so?
We are the first city in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania to proactively pursue a home rule charter without first going into municipal bankruptcy. And that is historic because we have proactively been, over decades, working to reduce our structural deficit and have come upon the conclusion that without help from the legislature, we needed to do it ourselves and to go through a very laborious, very intensive community process, electing independent home rule study commissioners, studying charters across the Commonwealth, drafting a charter, and then ultimately presenting that to the electorate for their support. And they supported it. On November 5th, 68% of the electorate voted yes in support of a home rule charter. And now we have the work ahead of us to implement this new constitution.
That's certainly an overwhelming majority. Did you expect that, or what do you think?
I was not expecting that level of support, and I'm really, really proud of the work of the Home Rule Study Commissioners. Obviously, they're independently elected. You know, I attended the study commission meetings, but ultimately they drafted a charter that was acceptable to the public. It included changes in tax policy, but it also included guardrails to prevent future administrations from wholesale increasing taxes.
It did not include electing council members on a regional basis within the city. Why not?
Well, I think ultimately that decision came down to a vote by the Home Rule Study Commissioners. There were 9, and there was some support on the study commission for a district-based election of city council members. But in the end, it did not get the full support of the Home Rule Study Commissioners, all 9 of them. And I think in the end, as I was listening to the debate about this issue, there was a strong feeling that the city of Lancaster at 7.3 square miles is just not large enough to merit that regionalization of district leaders, district council members. Now, people feel very strongly that it should have been, and now there is a process in the charter through public referendum that issue can be brought back onto the ballot.
The city has had quite a bit of development over the years. Why hasn't that, affected the budget and helped
Yes,
things?
Well, it certainly helps with the vitality of our downtown. It certainly helps with providing additional housing opportunities for people, et cetera. But realistically, there are only 2 forms of revenue that the city generates. One is from property taxes, And while we have the highest millage rate in Lancaster County, unfortunately, those property tax revenues don't pay for the entirety of our police and fire budgets. That's pretty amazing, right? All of the property, all of the redevelopment, all of the individual households that are coming in to get new roofs put on, they're pulling permits for additions, et cetera. That in and of itself is not generating enough revenue even to pay for public safety. And also mind that the county is the entity that sets the assessed value of a property, not the city. So while we set the millage rate, the county assesses the value. And that was last done in, I believe it was
2018,
2018, yes. And so without that continuous reassessment, we're flat in terms of the revenues that are generated year over year in property taxes. The other way is through earned income tax. Now, there are more people that live and work in the city than there are properties in the city. And so just on its face, there's more revenue that is available through earned income tax. It is also true that when you own a property or you are a renter, all of those property tax increases are coming back to you.
In terms of higher rent,
yes,
right?
Higher rent, higher property taxes. On the flip side, the earned income tax, you pay more if you make more, and you pay less if you make less. And in Pennsylvania, if you're a retired person in Pennsylvania, you don't pay earned income tax. So there's an end to the constant increase of property taxes.
Where people on a fixed income pay property taxes. Well, keep that
Correct.
thought, and we'll continue this conversation as we continue the conversation with the mayor.
This is WGAL 8 in Focus, coverage you can count on.
We continue our conversation about home rule in Lancaster with Mayor Deneen Sirache. Mayor, what is to prevent the city from raising property taxes along with raising the earned income tax?
Public advocacy and engagement in the budget process. And I know that people don't like to hear that, but really, how do we hold elected leaders accountable at any level of government? It's through public outcry and through direct engagement with elected officials. In the city of Lancaster, your elected officials are walking down the street. I mean, Susan, I've seen you on the street
Right.
in Queen Street. We've been at Central Market. People have the most access to local government, I think, at a city level. There are 3 public meetings a month, et cetera, et cetera. So really, it's incumbent on the public to be engaged and understand. And it also is a benefit to us to have WGAL and other news sources that are elevating issues of concern in our communities. And so it is my hope and desire that should the council decide to modestly increase the earned income tax, which, nobody likes doing this. Let me just be clear. This is not a victory lap that we've gotten home rule and we can now just raise earned income tax. But it is my hope that this council will adopt a budget that will have a modest earned income tax increase and not raise property taxes for at least 10 years. Mm-hmm. We have to live within that means. And everybody says, well, you should be living within your means now. Okay, our largest expenses are fire and police. That's where it's going to go. I mean, if we have to make significant cuts, that's going to cut public safety, and that is not on the table.
And the pension factors in quite a bit, doesn't
Pension,
it?
health care, not only health care for current employees, but health care for our retirees. And there's a lot of retired firefighters and police officers that are relying on us for their pension and their health care.
You said modest increase. What's
Yes.
a modest increase that will cover this so-called structural deficit?
0.5%. 0.5%.
And that will last how long? How often will you
Our
have
projections, now our projections are based on 10-year lookout and based on the average increase of expenses that has been between 3 and 4% a year for the city over the last 10 to 15 years. Now, we've gone all the way back 22 years. There have been 11 property tax increases by Mayor Smithcall, by Mayor Gray and by myself 11 out of 22 years. So 50% of the time, you're going to see a property tax increase. We cannot sustain local government by just continuously raising property taxes. So if this is the rock and this is the hard spot, here is your mayor trying to find a path out of this. And we've had to do it on our own. And I think I was saying a little bit before, you know, it is very, very frustrating to me that on both sides of the aisle, we have not received support from the state to be able to come up with more modern systems to support local government. All we have to rely on is, again, the people who live in the city, who pay an earned income tax, and the people who own property in the city. And that's it. There are a lot of other ways that we could be provided a menu of different taxing options that cities can choose from based on their unique circumstances. And it's very disappointing. And I have been a reluctant advocate of this home rule charter process for years. But at a certain point in time, you know, when you just keep seeing deficits in the future projected and required property tax increases, you just get tired of the same old tune. And so we've had to change the music, and this is the adoption of the new Constitution.
How will this affect the residents who work in the city but don't live in the city?
It will not affect you at all. The earned income tax is only paid by city residents. There is a modest local service tax that is paid.
That's like $47 a year, I think.
Yeah, $52. $5 go to the school district of Lancaster. $47 come to the city of Lancaster. It's $1 a week. $1 a week does not cut it when you're talking about $40 million in expenditures related to police and fire.
So you don't see this, obviously, as a way for the city to just impose other taxes?
Oh, no. The law is clear. There are no new taxes. The city council cannot create new taxes. There's no authority given in any future city council to create any new taxes. We have 4 taxes. 2 of them are quite small, the local service tax and the real estate transfer tax, and the other 2 are the real estate and earned income tax. And the only one that grows over time is the earned income tax.
Mayor, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I guess this will be your legacy, right? Yeah.
Well, I have long been working on the financial sustainability of the city, and it is my hope that this does it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Coming up on WGAL 8 in Focus, we'll talk to a community member about what he thinks about the decision.
This is WGAL 8 in Focus, coverage you can count on.
Joining us now is Kevin Ressler, a resident of the southeast section of the city and the former CEO of United Way of Lancaster County and a former mayoral candidate. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you, Susan, for having me.
What is your concern about home rule in the city of Lancaster?
Yeah, so the first thing I want to say is that I think that home rule was a good idea to consider, and that process took a long time. A lot of people put a lot of effort into it, a lot of good thinking. My concern really is I had hoped to see that the district model would be applied. And what that means is that different parts of the city geographically would be guaranteed seats on city council, as well as at-large members being elected who don't have to come from a particular area because of the lack of historical representation, particularly for the Southeast, which is the poorest and the least economically developed part of our community.
The mayor says the city is only in a 7-mile radius and that it's not big enough to have that kind of representation. Why do you disagree with that?
Well, I disagree because historically we used to have it. So we actually know that it's been done in the city before. I also disagree because you know, the fact that we're moving to home rule is a decision of how we want to address ourselves as a community of power, right? How's the influence going to be shown at city council and the halls of government? So we have the opportunity to elect the people who represent us, but for a city that is essentially one-party rule, how do you provide an avenue for representation from members in a community who don't feel that they're being seen by that political party? So other independents or even people from the non-majority party, and it's important to mention that doesn't necessarily just mean Republican, right? Because over time, this city used to be mostly Republican. And so I think it's important for political parties to recognize that they want to rule in a way that respects the minority, because they may be in the minority at some point. And that's where with districting, you at least get representation from community members who maybe aren't feeling represented by a one-party rule that they're not a part of.
This was certainly overwhelmingly voted yes by the voters in this general election. What do you have to say?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very low participation electorate, unfortunately, in the Lancaster City. So while it's overwhelmingly approved by the individuals who are voting, and we can agree or disagree on whether or not people who don't vote should have their opinions represented by government, I think that people's opinions should be represented even when they don't vote. That we represent not just those who vote for us, we represent all individuals in that community. So, the city, again, tried to do a great job of meeting community members throughout the community, but if you look at the numbers, they didn't meet with everybody. So yes, it was overwhelmingly voted for. I voted for it, and I think that a lot of individuals like myself voted for it in hopes that we don't see it as a finished product, but we see it as the beginning of a process of getting to better governance.
Did you go to these meetings? Did you have input?
Yes, so I attended a variety of different components of the meetings. I didn't attend any of the Home Rule Committee meetings that they had, but some
Why
of the
not?
community, largely scheduling issues, as well as, to be honest, it felt a little foregone conclusion-y at the meetings, sort of the way the agendas were set up. Much of the way that government sets up for public comment doesn't really feel like there's a whole lot taken into consideration then. And the process was designed that the community meetings were where you were supposed to be able to actually have the influential part of it. So just not trying to be a distraction to the process.
What do you think the alternative is? The Home Rule Commission thinks that not continuing to raise property taxes and possibly raising the earned income tax is a better way to fund the city's, economic problems.
Yeah, I think one of the concerns I also have, Susan, is have we thought about what the actual process is when we live in it? And what I mean by that is, so when we take a static moment and we look at median household incomes and we calculate numbers, all that is great, makes a lot of sense. But once you actually start to implement this, how does that change? Say you have someone really, really high earner, right? Let's say someone has compensation, household compensation, $500,000, $1 million or more. And there are some folks in the city who are in that category.
Certainly.
Right? That's a huge tax bill. And if they decide that this is too much and they move out, that significantly adjusts your calculations on how much revenue you're bringing in. And so by making long-term projections without any information on how people are going to react once this happens, I think that we want to just be more conservative-minded about the process itself.
All right, well, we'll have to leave it at that. Thank you, Kevin. We appreciate your time.
No problem. Thanks so much.
Thank you for joining us for WGAL 8 in Focus. For all of us at WGAL, I'm Susan Shapiro. And join us again next Saturday night at 7 o'clock for WGAL 8 in Focus, right after NBC Nightly News. And you can watch each episode of In Focus, plus WGAL's latest newscasts, original programming, and more. Just download the Very Local app and stream for free on Roku and Amazon Fire TV.